So let's go with this one. Just so once again you remember the anthrax, here it is again. Yep.
7 minutes to Cavuto now. New questions today about the FBI's investigation into the anthrax attacks from back in '01. They killed 5 people, remember. It remains the worst known bioterror attack on U.S. soil. You'll recall investigators blamed a government researcher, this guy, saying that he mailed the anthrax tainted letters to politicians and media organizations, including to this building, and that he acted alone. That government worker killed himself in '08 after officials began focusing on him as a suspect. But the review of the investigation now casts some degree of doubt on the FBI's conclusion. Catherine Herridge works intelligence for us. She's live in Washington. Catherine, what's the bottom line here according to this study?
Well, the bottom line is that all of the evidence points to an Army insider as the guilty party, but the FBI's case, which was officially closed last year, rested on the conclusion that the anthrax powder came from a single flask at a lab at Fort Detrick in Maryland. But we learned today from the scientists that the powder was not identical in all 4 letters. It was made or grown in 2 batches, and the scientists said the Department of Justice, or DOJ, overstated its case.
The scientific link between the letter material and the flask number RMR 1029 is not as conclusive as stated in the DOJ investigative summary.
And in a very lengthy statement today, the FBI said that the scientific evidence was just part of the case against Bruce Ivins and that there was other evidence that also pointed to him as the sole suspect, Chap.
You know, even if you begin with the assumption that the anthrax came from that lab, I guess one of the points being made here is that there could have been others involved.
Well, there could have been others. You know, the heart of the FBI case is that it was Ivan's flask and that the flask was the source of the anthrax. But I've spoken to people who worked at Fort Detrick along with Ivan's, and they said that a number of people had access to the lab and had access to that flask. It's kind of like saying, Shep, your stapler was used as a murder weapon. It was used to bludgeon somebody, and you're like, hey, it's my stapler, but there's 6 people who sit around me, and all 6 people had access to that stapler. So you just can't conclude it's me. But the FBI's case was that it was Ivan's flask. Therefore, Ivins really was the killer. But there was other evidence that failed to put Ivins in New Jersey, which is where the letters were mailed. And people who knew Ivins said this was a guy who, if he wanted to kill himself, had access to some of the most lethal poisons on the planet. Yet he chose to kill himself with a Tylenol overdose. And a Tylenol overdose is one of the most sort of prolonged and painful deaths that you can have. It takes about a week because it begins with liver failure, and they've never understood why Ivins would have done that.
Very good point. Catherine Herridge, thanks so much.
You're welcome.
So yeah, that added a lot of fear then, didn't it? You had to protect yourself, your family. The Americans being attacked. 9/11 were being attacked. October 8th were being attacked. And then the sniper. Here, have a little piece of, gee, you can learn about Mr. Sniper Man, the DC sniper, right? As he changes his defense. Does this sound like a patsy to you or what? He says, oh, I want lawyers. Then, oh, I'm going to defend myself. And we keep on, well, he's John so-and-so Mohammed.
After telling his own lawyers to suspend his appeal and urging prosecutors to, quote, hurry up and kill this innocent black man, it seems the man dubbed the D.C. sniper has changed his mind. John Allen Muhammad and his teenage accomplice Lee Boyd Malveaux were convicted of killing 10 people in the Washington area in 2003. Muhammad was sentenced to death. Malveaux got life in prison. Last week, Muhammad sent a letter to Virginia's Attorney General saying he wanted to suspend all appeals and that if any were filed on his behalf, he did not authorize them. But Muhammad's team of defense lawyers say he's changed his mind and now wants to go forward with a federal appeal of his conviction and death sentence. Muhammad's lawyers recently cited evidence of brain damage, arguing he wasn't fit to make legal decisions and he shouldn't have been allowed to represent himself, as he did for 2 days in his Virginia trial. Sophia Manos, The Associated Press.
This was like such perfectly orchestrated BS to generate fear into the minds of Americans. And when we find out later on that the only place the anthrax could have came from is from our own people, and then we find years later that they were running drills on 9/11. Yeah, tripod 2, gee, and that involved crashing planes into those buildings. But anyway, here you go. Ivins, the guy they finally blamed it on. Learn a little bit about this. Here you go. Here's, Ivins, he emails to himself. I do that for myself, by the way. When I email stuff to people, I email myself a copy. He says, I figured out who did it. shortly after, he's the man, he's incarcerated, okay, involuntarily, and he just happens to kill himself. But don't believe me. Listen to the news.
The Army scientist accused of carrying out the 2001 anthrax attacks emailed himself in 2007, saying he knew who the killer was. That's according to court documents unsealed Wednesday. Bruce Ivins apparently sent the email on September 7, 2007. In the email, Ivins says, yes, 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 I finally know who mailed the anthrax letters in the fall of 2001. I've pieced it together. However, the email did not say who Ivins thought was the anthrax killer. Ivins killed himself in July, just as prosecutors prepared to charge him in the mailings that killed 5 people and sickened more than a dozen others. Ivins' attorney says his client was innocent and would have been cleared had the case gone to trial. However, the FBI investigation concluded that Ivins, and Ivins alone, was responsible for the attacks. Ivins worked at Fort Detrick in Maryland and had access to the deadly strain of anthrax used in the 2001 attacks. Carlotta Bradley, The Associated Press.
So you told a guy at a research center. Here it is again. This is how they're trying to put it on Ivins. Now it comes out, I want to give you another picture too. This is where the FBI screwed up the, did their own cover-up. When they found out, Ivins couldn't have been there. He couldn't have mailed it from where it got mailed. He wasn't where, it didn't fit. But they needed somebody because they had to now close this case for you so you could, feel safe. In other words, the whole cover-up thing, kind of just like they had Bulger here in Massachusetts, huh? Where the FBI were putting patsies up and they're doing time. And later on it comes out that, those patsies didn't commit those crimes. No, the FBI was covering their own tracks. Why was this important? Why was this fear propaganda important? Look at what's happened in the past decade from 9/11. Wars based on lies. Once again, they signed the order to attack Afghanistan the day before the September 11th. How did they know that? Then you look at Iraq. We've killed 1 million Iraqis easily, and they didn't even attack us. And they were supposed to have weapons of mass destruction. Then you found out the only weapons they got were from us. The sarin gas, was from the United States of America. That's your tax dollars at work. That's, was your tax dollars poisoning those Kurds. Why this is important for you is you have to look beyond this fear propaganda. They use fear. They use fear on you and your family. So, now what is Dugway Proving Grounds, Why is the CIA making anthrax? Why would we want that? Why would you're a U.S. citizen out there, why would you want your cocaine importation agency making anthrax? Is something good going to come out of it? Did you figure out how the White House knew to get on Cipro before the attacks, the anthrax attacks? Have you figured that one out? Because you're a smart viewer. You're my audience. Smarter than most. Willing to follow the money, even if it goes all the way back to Patel and the Carlyle Group. You're willing to do that, right? And then maybe, when you get your next Nobel Peace Prize winner who wins the Nobel before he does anything and then attacks people, increases war, increases troops, you'll see through this stuff and you'll make a better republic for your children. Gosh, I could ask, how do you weaponize anthrax? I want to, bring this around or finish it out, close it out with a piece with Alex Jones, and I liked it. I thought it was a good finished piece for you, so here you go.
But to answer your question, you can go research this all for yourself. They tried to frame 3 different people for it. Then the last guy, Ivins, they grabbed him, they took him to a government facility, and they killed him. And it was buried in 2 newspapers that, by the way, the government had grabbed him when he was throwing fits and threatening to go public, and that he died of a Tylenol overdose in government hands. And when the news said that he'd done it and all this, he never got a trial because they killed him. The reason you have even more evidence of them killing him is that it was not on the news, the nightly news. It was just buried as if it was a footnote that, the government had grabbed him and put him in a mental institution at a government facility because he was saying he didn't do it. And then he conveniently died. So they tried to frame 3 other patsies. They grabbed the 4th guy. They lied and said that the anthrax had been made in a bathtub with a bucket. They said it wasn't weaponized. Then all these university heads came out and said, that's Fort Detrick, Maryland, the most weaponized AIM strain. It takes hundreds of millions of dollars of equipment to make it. No other government on earth can make anthrax this deadly. First, they miniaturize it. I mean, the list goes on. And then it did come out in the news who was known to have broke into the facility, who had the access to it. And we even have that guy's name. So I probably should recap, go back over all my own research, triple check it all, and then do like a 5-minute video breaking it down. And if I have time, I'll do it next week.
Now, when you think of humanitarian wars, that's preemptive wars where we attack people first, Libya, and we bomb them with hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars of arms, because, you know, if you think about it real quick, just this humanitarian thing, because Obama has left cover. You don't see the left people getting upset now when he lobs, you know, $100 million worth of cruise missiles, actually close to $150 million worth of cruise missiles, onto people that didn't attack us, because the rebels, who are what? Funded and armed through Saudi Arabia, through Egypt, which had a military coup, but you were sold by the media that it was a great thing for the Egyptians. Did the media turn around and tell you that they just changed the Egyptian constitution? They will not allow protesting anymore. Isn't it good that the military runs Egypt? Yeah, like there's a change. So why I'm saying this is, if you fund both sides of the war, like the rebels, and then you say, I'm going to take out Gaddafi, did it ever scratch your mind that possibly following the money, who has the largest known oil reserves in the continent of Africa? There's some homework for the viewer. So with that in mind, the whole show, did you need this fear, the propaganda fear? Who sold you this fear? Who sells you this terrorism? Who, once again, problem, reaction, solution? Who created the problem? Who's providing you the solution? I know how you react. I see how you react. You see how your neighbors react. So with that, I'm going to finish with my favorite, and that is God bless you. God bless your family. God bless this constitutional republic. Down with this New World Order, globalist, bankster BS. And as usual, I will say, thank you for watching.